For those of you who don't know me, my name is Daliah Husu. I am a trans woman. I am a wife, a proud wife. I am a Latina, and I'm also a writer. I am the author of I Am Woman, Surviving the Past, the Present, and the Future. This is my recently self-published memoir, which I released on Amazon.com on March 23rd of this year. I forgot what year we were in already. This year. And, you know, Dee talked a lot about, and I'm going to say the hell with the speech because we're just going to say it as it comes. Dee talked a lot about finding your truth, finding your power, changing your language. And that really speaks to me because I believe in changing your language. I think change comes from the moment that we start to see ourselves, to honor ourselves. It begins the moment that we start to really appreciate who we are, and we change the way we speak about ourselves. The words become material things. Just 2 years ago, you know, I had lost my job, I had lost my car, I had $500 in my bank account, and you know, I had lost even my apartment, you know, so I was homeless at that time. You know, and I reached a point where I didn't know where I was going, where I was headed. My husband and I, he was then my boyfriend, we ended up renting a room, you know, a then friend's house. It was a trailer that he owned, and we rented a small 10 by 10 room. And I had no direction whatsoever. I hated myself. I hated all the choices that I had made up to that point. I was heavily into drugs, heavily into drinking, and right here in this community, ironically, you know. And I wanted to leave this community because I hated everything that I had experienced here. So every time you would say Wilton Manors or Fort Lauderdale, to me, I immediately associated with druggies, partygoers, promiscuity, because that's kind of what my life really was like. And everyone that I knew who lived here, you know, was also caught up in that same madness. So no one was really helping to uplift me. So I had to lose everything in order to find my purpose, to find the power that was within me. And of course, to find the power that is in words. That's how I began to write. And it happened, you know, one November morning, you know, we're in this small room in a trailer that smelled like God knows what, mold and, you know, whatever else. And, you know, when we looked around and we really saw, you know, the circumstances, you know, it was depressing. And we're like, this is what my life has come to. You know, I have a college degree, I have a bachelor's degree. You know, I'm also a licensed cosmetologist. And for me to hit that reality and say, wow, where's all the work that I put? You know, where's all the time that I put into studying, into, and all the effort and the money that I put into transitioning? You know what I mean? At that point, I was like, what was the point for me to be living out of some trailer? You know, not that there's anything wrong with living in a trailer, but I always saw myself as someone who deserved more, and I lost it all. So I was praying. I am a spiritual person. I'm not a religious person, but I have my beliefs, and I was praying for answers. So one November morning, I just woke up, it was 3 in the morning, and it hit me just out of the blue. And I knew I had to write a book. Whether it sold or not, that wasn't the point. I needed to share my story because I felt an obligation, one, to speak my experience and to share my experiences with the world. And I knew that there were tons of girls out there that I knew who were going through things similar to what I was experiencing, and much worse. So I always wanted to make a mark on the world, and I guess that was the beginning of my evolution and my process to try to change the world in my way. So anyways, I don't want to keep speaking because I know we have 20 minutes. I want to read the introduction of my book. It's a short chapter, and it begins right at that point. We're living in the trailer and how things evolved and how my book became a reality. So without any further ado, I'm going to read the dedication, which is a poem, which I dedicated to my husband because he was the only person that was there for me during that time. So I will start with the poem, and then we'll move into the chapter. If you want to snore, go ahead. if you feel like you want to yawn, go ahead. But hopefully that isn't the case. So for you, Reuben, I wrote these words, my sweetest love, my one true friend. From all the places that I've been, to all the things that I've seen, I found a place, a thing of art, inside of you, your lovely heart. In all creations high and low, nor in the universe that I know, exists a creature such as you, for you're magnificent, and that is true. My eyes are blessed from such a sight of youth, beauty, and light. Majestic creature from above, you fill my soul with so much love. Oh, dearest love, sweet love of mine, my heart awaits till it is time. For your return I shall await, be it on earth or heaven's gate. So that was my dedication to my husband when I first started writing my book. And that poem, I had actually written prior to when I started. It was a time when we were separated, but I always knew that he would come back at some point, and he did. So he couldn't resist all of this. So I'm going to start reading the introduction, and it's titled November 2014. The idea of spending a year of my life dressed in pajamas and writing a book in bed seemed like a commitment I would fail to keep. Yet I succeeded given my circumstances. After being fired from a dead-end job, having my car repossessed for being 2 months behind on payments, and spending the last $500 in my checking account on rent, I hit rock bottom. I had nothing going for me, no savings, no assets, and nothing to show for all the years of hard work I'd put in the past. I found myself in the middle of a crisis, broke and clueless as to where my life was leading me. I was scared, but I wasn't alone. I was lucky to have baby boy by my side during those trying times. The two of us had just moved in together, and we were beginning to work on our future as a couple. But the uncertainties we faced day after day daunted us, and when we took inventory of what we had, the reality of our circumstances became almost unbearable. All we had was each other, and the 10 by 10 room we rented in a small trailer. I desperately needed a miracle, a heavenly intervention that would give my life a purpose and place me on the path to happiness, freedom, and success. It was 3 a.m. when I sprung out of bed one early November morning. I sat on the edge of the mattress, restless and consumed by a feeling that I couldn't explain. I needed to write. I was compelled to write my personal story because I believed that someone out there needed to know that they weren't alone on this journey of self-discovery and truth. Someone out there was also struggling to survive, needed to know that it was possible to overcome the challenges and barriers they were facing that very moment. Despite my own unfavorable circumstances, I knew I was a confirmation of hope and survival in a world that appears to hold little prospect for trans women and other marginalized individuals. I humbly had to share the love. "Baby, what's wrong?" asked baby boy as I shook him and woke him from his deep sleep. "I can't sleep anymore. I feel a strong urge to write a book," I answered. He couldn't believe I was up in the middle of the night talking about writing a book. It was absurd, but I couldn't contain the overwhelming impulse that drove me out of bed to fetch my laptop and begin writing. "You're going to write a book? About what?" he asked. "Well, about my life," I explained, hoping I didn't sound too egotistical. "Baby, I think it would be a great book. People would love to hear your story," he said to my surprise. Those were the sweetest words of encouragement. At the time, I needed baby boy's support more than anything, even if he failed to understand my motives. For him, it was valid enough for me to say that I wanted to write, and without any objections or scrutiny, he acknowledged the solemnity of my tone. Silently, I got out of bed, brewed a cup of coffee, and began typing my first unedited words. The most desired spiritual, emotional, and mental states are love, happiness, and freedom. But truly being in any of these states requires doing some work. None of them comes easily because of our stubborn nature, yet they are ever present and available to us. All it takes is a shift in our perception. If we let go of the unnecessary baggage that we carry through life, we can see just how easy it is to experience love, happiness, and freedom at a personal level. The baggage of greed, selfishness, self-righteousness, hatred, anger, lust, lies, addiction, and self-loathing is what hinders us from being truly happy in our existence. My personal battle against these negative states of mind and emotions has been a lifelong process. At the age of 34, I realized there was more to my life than wandering about and waiting for my circumstances to change on their own, getting high to numb the pain of my reality, drinking myself silly till I passed out, filling my day with mindless tasks that ultimately led me nowhere, and making money to acquire material possessions that made me feel good momentarily, but distracted me from the rest of the world and my duty to spread a positive message upon it. For too long, I was occupied with fleeting thrills and personal gratification, but I never filled the void that dwelt within me, no matter how much I had or how high I got. The biggest misconception I had was to do anything that was required of me for acceptance. It got me in a lot of trouble. I lived by the flawed belief that being part of a society, a community, or a social group meant doing things that were often harmful to me. It was my way of surviving and fitting in within the social system I knew. For many years, I lived my life making bad decisions just to be part of a community that was consumed by alcohol and drug abuse. But my need to fit in and feel part of something bigger than me originated with my wanting my mother's praises and acceptance. Believe me when I say that praise was never expressed at home, which affected me profoundly from a young age and influenced many of the decisions I made when it came to choosing friends, lovers, and even more. There is nothing wrong with wanting acceptance, but when we are deprived of it by others and by ourselves, we resort to doing things that we later regret. The atmosphere of punishment and fear my mother subjected me to as a child pushed me away from her and from home. Ironically, the punitive system she believed would straighten me out and make me a moral and productive member of society, instead hurled me out onto the streets in a quest to find my own answers and the love that I so craved. Hungry for appreciation, I searched for acknowledgement in the wrong places and among the wrong people. As a young adult, I was hot-headed, temperamental, always angry, and always feeling victimized. It seemed to me that I never had a fair chance in life, and that neither my mother nor the world ever gave me an opportunity to express my emotions, talents, and capabilities in a way that was natural to me. The idea that it was not okay to be gay, and much less to be trans, was drilled into my head by the echoing tones of narrow-minded and judgmental remarks I heard at home, on television, in church, and on the streets. My anger towards the world built up and eventually motivated me to prove everyone wrong about who I was. I swore that someday I would show the world what I, a trans woman living in America, was really capable of achieving while being my truest self. On many occasions, I thought justice was bound to prevail and rule in my favor, and it did, but it didn't prevail in the retributive karmic way I envisioned then. By punishing the people who wronged me, instead, it took its time to teach me a series of lessons on self-acceptance, self-love, and forgiveness. My transition period was probably the angriest and most violent time of my life. It was a time when all of my negative emotions and frustrations with the world boiled over. I became a tyrant when dealing with others because I thought I was certain of who I was. Mentally and emotionally, I gained a power and a confidence that no one could take from me. And for the first time, I felt in control. But I misused that power in a way that hurt others. I called it justice at the time, but it was really retribution. I became a self-righteous person, entitled and incapable of ever being wrong, and always unapologetic. I thought I found freedom by becoming a woman, but I was still bound by the same fear and anger that was always there. My sex change united my mind with my body, but it failed to set me free. It was a first step towards becoming whole, but the freedom, love, and sense of belonging I searched for was beyond any physical change I put my body through. It would take a deeper journey into my being, ending detrimental friendships and relationships, losing my job and material possessions, and even becoming homeless to finally find myself. My volatile lifestyle during and after transition blinded me from seeing the truth because my rebellious disposition and physical senses were fueled and heightened by my chronic drinking and snorting cocaine. For over a decade, I partied as a local celebrity in Fort Lauderdale's gay scene. I was at the biggest parties, on every guest list, and I frequently received gifts from friends and admirers, gifts that mostly came in powder and pill forms. I thought I had reached the pinnacle, that life couldn't get any better, that I would never come down from my prominent status, and that I had achieved the ultimate success because people liked me. Indeed, the world was an amazing place while I was drunk and high with my beloved friends. Being in Fort Lauderdale's in crowd gave me the sense of belonging and acceptance I had craved for so long. But the crowd I followed, my drinking and druggy friends, were just as lost and emotionally scarred as I was. Many of them never made it out of this injurious lifestyle. It is not a criticism or judgment that I mention them and their lifestyle, but just to illustrate how easy it is for all of us to get caught up in the madness without realizing it. For some, it was too late, and I watched them live and die in the grip of drug addiction, emotional and physical abuse, and the decay of deceit. After years of living in chaos and watching others destroy their lives, I began questioning my purpose on this planet. I needed to find answers to my questions, free of religious opinions, free of stigmas, free of peer pressures, free of drugs and alcohol. I needed to clear my mind, to reevaluate what was important to me. I needed to understand that I wasn't really seeking fame. I came to understand that I wasn't really seeking fame, riches, drugs, nor to be liked by everyone. What I craved was tapping into my soul, being mentally stable, creating lasting and meaningful relationships, and engaging in something I loved. The reevaluation of my life brought me to this conclusion. I have to make tough choices and restructure the way I live by simplifying my surroundings and eliminating my connections to the people who bring me down. Ultimately, I needed to set fire to my old way of life and rise out of the ashes a new and empowered woman. Those were the first words I wrote that morning, a summarized version of my life story, but my story was more complex and much deeper than those first paragraphs managed to explain. My life was a love story from beginning to end. It was a drama unfolding in many settings. It was an obnoxious comedy that at times made me think, why did I do that? It was a tearjerker that touched even the coldest of hearts. And most remarkably, it was a story of wit and survival, of beating the odds and keeping hold of a faith that tomorrow would be a better day.